Marcus Webb had been a freight hauler for 6 years, running cargo between the outer colonies and the inner worlds. It was honest work, lonely work, and exactly what he'd wanted after his discharge from the Earth Defense Forces. No more orders, no more combat, no more watching friends die in the black. Just him, his ship, the vagrant star, and the endless quiet of space. That quiet shattered the moment his sensors picked up the distress beacon. Marcus almost ignored it. Distress beacons in the Kalari expanse usually meant pirates, and pirates meant trouble he couldn't afford. But the beacon's signature was wrong, too sophisticated, broadcasting on frequencies reserved for diplomatic vessels. Against his better judgment, he altered course. The wreckage appeared on his view screen an hour later. What had been a sleek corvette was now a twisted carcass of metal venting atmosphere and debris. Scorch marks suggested a recent attack. Marcus ran a scan and his heart sank. One life sign barely registering in what remained of an escape pod that had failed to fully deploy. "Damn it," he muttered, already suiting up. He knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't at least try. The spacewalk was treacherous. The wreckage was still tumbling slowly, and Marcus had to time his approach perfectly. He mag-locked onto the hull and made his way to the escape pod, plasma cutter in hand. Through the pod's small viewport, he could see a figure slumped inside, definitely not human. Marcus cut through the jammed hatch and pulled the survivor free. She was Thrasin. He recognized the species from his military days. 7 feet tall, even unconscious, with skin that shimmered like polished copper, 4 graceful arms, and a crest of crystalline structures that ran from her forehead down her spine. She wore robes that had once been magnificent but were now torn and scorched. More concerning were her injuries. Deep lacerations across her torso, severe burns on 2 of her arms, and her breathing was shallow and irregular. Marcus got her back to his ship and into the medical bay as fast as his training allowed. Over the next 3 days, Marcus barely slept. The Thrasin were notoriously difficult to treat. Their biochemistry was complex, and their bodies rejected most standard medications. Marcus worked with what he had, using his military medical training and the ship's limited database to improvise treatments. He cleaned wounds, synthesized compatible antibiotics, and monitored her vital signs with obsessive attention. On the 4th day, she woke. Marcus was checking her IV drip when those enormous golden eyes opened and fixed on him with startling intensity. He froze, suddenly aware of how vulnerable he was. The Thrasin were warriors, and even injured, she could probably snap him in half. "Easy," he said softly, raising his hands. "You're safe. You were in an escape pod. I brought you aboard my ship." She stared at him for a long moment, her translator implant clicking softly as it calibrated. When she spoke, her voice was rich and melodious despite her weakness. "You are human." "Yes, ma'am, Marcus Webb, captain of the Vagrant Star." "Human," she repeated, and something flickered in her expression, surprise, confusion, perhaps suspicion. "Why would a human save a Thrasin?" Marcus blinked. "Because you were dying. Did I need another reason?" She studied him with unsettling focus. "Our peoples have no formal alliance. We have barely established trade relations. By saving me, you gain nothing." "I gain knowing I didn't let someone die when I could help," Marcus said simply. "Who are you?" "Maybe I can contact your people, let them know you're safe." Her forearms tensed. "That would not be wise. The attack on my vessel was not random piracy. There are those among my own kind who would prefer I did not return home. Political trouble? You could say that. She attempted to sit up, winced, and allowed Marcus to help her. I am Lyra's hand, daughter of Queen Vezara of the Thracian sovereignty, third in line to the eternal throne. Marcus felt his blood turn cold. You're a princess. I rescued a princess. Does this change your intention to help me? No, but it explains why someone tried to kill you. He ran a hand through his hair. Your Highness, I'm just a freight hauler. I don't do politics or royal intrigue. I'll get you to the nearest Thracian outpost, but after that, no outposts. Lyra's hand's voice turned hard. The conspiracy reaches far. I trust no one in the outer territories. You will take me to the homeworld, to my mother directly. That's a 2-week journey through 3 hostile territories. Then I suppose we should leave immediately. She met his gaze with absolute certainty. You saved my life, Marcus Webb. I will not forget this. But nor will I allow your courage to be wasted by delivering me into the hands of my enemies. Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to dump her at the nearest station and get back to his quiet, uncomplicated life. But looking at her injured, determined, and clearly terrified despite her royal bearing, he knew he couldn't do it. Fine, he sighed, but you're staying in Medical Bay until those wounds close, and you're going to tell me everything about who wants you dead. A small smile touched her copper features. As you wish, Captain. The journey to the Thracian homeworld tested every skill Marcus had developed in 6 years of freight hauling and 5 years of military service before that. They dodged patrol ships, bypassed checkpoints using false credentials Marcus had promised himself he'd never use again, and twice evaded ships that Lyra's hand identified as belonging to the conspiracy. During the long hours in hyperspace, they talked. Lyra's hand told him about the plot, a faction within the nobility seeking to overthrow her mother and establish a more aggressive, expansionist government. They'd targeted Lyra's hand because she was her mother's most trusted advisor, the one who'd been advocating for peaceful integration with other species. Marcus told her about his own past, the wars he'd fought, the friends he'd lost, the reason he'd chosen solitude over service. You have seen too much death, Lyra's hand observed one evening as they shared a meal in the galley. She'd recovered remarkably well, though she still moved carefully. Haven't we all? Marcus said, pushing food around his plate. Yet you still chose life when you found me. You could have left me to die. It would have been safer, simpler. I couldn't do that. Why not? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because every person I couldn't save in the war haunts me. I wasn't going to add another ghost to that list. Lyra's hand reached across the table with one of her 4 hands and touched his. The gesture was gentle, almost reverent. You are a remarkable being, Marcus Webb. I'm really not. You are. And my mother will see it as clearly as I do. Marcus didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. But he didn't pull his hand away. They reached the Thracian homeworld on the 13th day. The planet was breathtaking, a world of crystalline cities and bioluminescent forests, with 3 moons hanging in a sky that shifted between violet and gold. The orbital defenses nearly vaporized them until Lyra's hand transmitted her personal codes. Within an hour, they were surrounded by the royal guard and escorted to the palace. The Eternal Palace made Marcus feel impossibly small. Structures of living crystal soared hundreds of feet high, resonating with harmonics that he felt in his bones. The Thracian royal court gathered in a throne room that could have swallowed his entire ship, all of them staring at the human who dared bring their princess home. And on the throne sat Queen Vezara. She was magnificent and terrifying. Taller than Lyra's hand, with skin that gleamed like burnished gold and a crest of crystal that sparkled with inner light. 6 arms instead of 4, a sign of the ancient royal bloodline, eyes that seemed to see through him to his very soul. "Daughter," the queen said, her voice resonating through the chamber, "you live, because of this human mother." Lyra's hand stepped forward, and Marcus noticed she was trembling slightly. "Captain Marcus Webb found me dying in the void. He saved my life, protected me from our enemies, and brought me home at great personal risk. He asked for nothing in return." The queen's gaze fixed on Marcus, and he forced himself not to flinch. "Is this true, human?" "Your Highness," Marcus said carefully, "I did what anyone should do. Your daughter needed help. Yet many would not have helped. You have no alliance with my people. You gain no advantage from this deed." She descended from her throne, and Marcus's military instinct screamed at him to either run or kneel. He did neither, holding his ground. "Why? Because she was a person in need. That's reason enough." The queen stopped directly in front of him. At 8 feet tall, she towered over him, but Marcus kept his eyes on hers. Around them, the court held its collective breath. Then Vezara did something that made every Thracian in the room gasp. She placed one hand on Marcus's shoulder, a gesture Marcus's translator identified as a sign of profound respect between equals. "You shame us," Vezara said quietly. "You, who owe us nothing, who has fought against species allied with ours, who has every reason to harbor resentment, you saw only a life worth saving. While my own nobles plot murder, a human shows the honor they have forgotten." She turned to address her court, her voice rising. "This human has saved my daughter and preserved the stability of our realm. By the old laws, he has earned a debt that cannot be repaid with mere wealth or titles." The queen returned her attention to Marcus, and there was something fierce and determined in her gaze. "Marcus Webb, I claim you." What? "You are claimed," Vezara continued, "under the law of sacred debt. You have saved the life of one of royal blood. This creates a bond that cannot be broken. From this moment, you are under my personal protection. My resources are yours. My warriors are yours. My authority shields you. Any who threatens you threatens me personally." Marcus felt his head spinning. "Your Majesty, that's not necessary." "It is absolutely necessary," Lyra's hand interjected, moving to stand beside her mother. "You do not understand what this means, Marcus. My mother has just declared you family, not symbolically, legally and irrevocably. You are now part of the royal household. I'm a freight hauler. You are the human who taught us the meaning of courage," Vezara said firmly. "You are the one who proved that honor transcends species and politics, and you are now mine to protect as you protected my most precious treasure." She gestured, and servants brought forward a cloak of shimmering fabric. Vezara draped it over Marcus's shoulders herself. "This marks you as royal claimed. No Thracian will raise a hand against you. No door will be closed to you, and should you need anything, you need only ask." Marcus looked at Lyra's hand helplessly. She smiled, her golden eyes warm. "You saved me, Marcus. Now let us save you from that lonely ship and lonelier life." She took one of his hands in 2 of hers. "Stay, be part of something larger. Let us show you what it means to be valued, not for what you can do, but for who you are." "The conspirators will be dealt with," Vezara said, steel in her voice. "Thanks to you, my daughter lives to identify them. They will face justice." Her expression softened slightly. "But that is not your burden. You have already done more than could ever be asked." Marcus stood there wrapped in alien silk, surrounded by beings who looked at him with respect and gratitude and felt something he hadn't felt in years, belonging. "I don't know how to be part of a royal household," he admitted. "You already proved you know how to be family," Lyra's hand said gently. "You risked everything for someone you didn't know, expected no reward, and asked for nothing. That is more than most nobles can claim." Vezara extended all 6 of her arms in a formal gesture. "I claim you, Marcus Webb, not as a subject, but as kin. Will you accept?" Marcus thought about his ship, about the endless quiet of space, about the ghosts that haunted him. Then he thought about Lyra's hand's smile, about the way the Queen looked at him like he was precious, about the possibility of being part of something good. He placed his hand over his heart and bowed, a human gesture of respect. "I accept your majesty." The throne room erupted in harmonics, the Thracian equivalent of applause. Lyra's hand pulled him into an embrace with all 4 arms, and Marcus found himself laughing for the first time in months. "Welcome home," she whispered. And somehow, impossibly, it felt like he had finally found one. Over the following months, Marcus learned what it meant to be claimed by a Thracian queen. Vezara was not merely protective, she was aggressively devoted to his well-being. She assigned him quarters in the palace that were larger than his ship. She provided tutors to teach him Thracian culture and language. She consulted him on matters of policy, valuing his outsider perspective. Most surprisingly, she sought his company. Not for any political purpose, but simply to know him. They walked in the crystalline gardens together. They shared meals. She told him stories of her long reign, and he told her about the wonders he'd seen in his travels. "You changed everything," Vezara told him one evening as they watched the triple moonrise. "My daughter tells me you are uncomfortable with this attention, but you must understand, you gave me back my child. There is no greater gift. There is no debt I would not pay, no honor I would not bestow." "I just did what was right," Marcus said. "Exactly." Vezara's golden eyes gleamed. "And that is why you are worth claiming, not because you sought reward, but because you didn't. You showed us what we had forgotten, that true strength lies in compassion, not conquest." She placed one hand on his shoulder. "You are mine now, Marcus Webb, my human, my kin, and I will spend the rest of my reign proving to you that this is where you belong." Marcus looked up at her, this alien queen who had claimed him so fiercely, and smiled. "I'm starting to believe it." "Good," Vezara said, and her expression was tender. "Because I am never letting you go." And Marcus discovered he didn't want her to.